Hi there, caregivers. My name is Pat Snyder, and my husband John was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia in 2007. He passed away in November of 2015. And I want to talk to you today about building trust in the caregiver journey. That was very important to both of us that happened. And it kind of started spontaneously, I think, in a conversation that John and I had just a few weeks after his diagnosis. And by the way, he got his diagnosis when he was very early in the presentation of the disease. And I said, John, I said, you've got Lewy body dementia. It is what it is. But as far as we know, I don't have it. So why don't you let me be your second brain? What do you think about that? Would you be willing to let me be your second brain? And when things come up, I can help you figure out maybe what's going on and help you problem solve in the moment. We could figure things out together. And he said yes. And it stuck. And we continued with that. And I extended a little bit later in the journey when I learned, I picked up or coined the phrase personify the disease. I decided to separate Lewy body dementia, which I named Lewy, from John. I separated him from the disease, and I saw the disease as a monster that I needed to outsmart, and John as the person whose precious personhood I needed to protect. I needed to love and nurture him because he had this monster coming after him. And so that combination of things, of letting me be his second brain and accepting that Lewy was one thing and John was another, those two things were really very important. And they built very deep trust. And deep trust creates a different journey for you, the caregiver, a different journey for the person with the disease, a different journey for your whole family, I would propose to you. Now, another thing that made a huge difference for us was counseling. It added a better understanding of each other, a better way. We built on communication skills. We learned how to listen to one another, not just hear what was going on, but to listen and hear understand what that person was really trying to convey. That was very, very helpful. And so I'll tell you another story. What our counselor taught us, and there is a chapter which I include in my book, Treasures in the Darkness, if you want to learn more about this, because this was just an aha moment for me. It was, the chapter's called Bobcats and Turtles. And what the counselor said was that for married couples in particular, and a lot of times when you're in relationships with people, but particularly with married couples, 95% of them, he said, in his practice, one person in the relationship was a bobcat and one person was a turtle. I said, well, what in the world does that mean? Well, here's how I explain it and give you the very short version. Whenever threatened or challenged, the bobcat is going to go forward. Think about what a bobcat does. If it's challenged or threatened, it moves forward. The turtle, when it's threatened or challenged, retreats into the shell and tries to move away from that. What was most interesting, though, was what he said next. And what he talked about then was that the bobcat, the one that goes more aggressively, uses more words, wants to attack a problem, go after it. The vulnerability of the bobcat is rejection. It was like, oh, never thought about that before. And the vulnerability of the turtle is criticism. And it was like, okay. And then he drew this chart, and I don't have paper right here, but basically he started drawing parts of a circle with little arrows on it. And what he said was, okay, so the bobcat feels like there's a challenge or a problem, and so the bobcat starts using a lot of words and wants to go after it and solve that problem, and talking and dealing with the turtle. And so the turtle is starting to feel criticized in the middle of that, because that's the vulnerability, that's the filter that's there. And so the turtle retreats. Well, when the turtle retreats, the bobcat interprets that retreat as rejection. So the bobcat goes more and more into trying to solve this problem. And it creates this cycle that becomes a habit for many people in close relationships if they have this bobcat turtle thing going on. Here's the neat part of it, though. What he taught us was that if one of you, either the bobcat or the turtle, makes a decision that they want to reverse this cycle, and they're going to start doing the opposite of what they would have done before, the bobcat's going to speak less, speak softer, back off a little bit. The turtle's going to come out of the shell and be willing to engage a little more. If either one of them changes that habit, that tendency, the cycle can actually be reversed. It can be dealt with. And that was an aha moment. We started practicing these kinds of things because one of us was a bobcat, one of us was a turtle. And you can be different characters in different, like a different one at work than you are at home, which is interesting. And so that was fascinating. And so it was like light bulbs came on everywhere for us. And we realized, oh, we're in this cycle. There's a way, we can stop it. And as caregiver, I didn't have to deal with any of those symptoms personally inside my own brain, inside myself. And so I felt pretty comfortable trying to do things differently and manage things in a different way going forward. John felt emboldened by it. Here again, we're early in the disease for him, and he did also. And it built trust. We were building trust. We were dealing with what was really going on. We had an enlightenment about that because of the wisdom of our counselor. And it was just fantastic. It really, really did help. Something else that I found that would build trust was learning to slow and soften absolutely everything in your caregiver journey. If you're the primary caregiver, you slow the pace of what's going on around them, the things you're doing, the things other people are doing. You start to manage those kinds of things. You slow even the speed of your voice because we're dealing with cognition here. And cognition, what that means is you can say words, but then there is, with the ears, you can hear those words, but it's the processing, the cognition of those words that really delivers meaning. What do they mean? And so by slowing the speed at which you speak, you can actually help someone with their cognition. Also using fewer words helped. The tone of your voice, the tone of the room. These kinds of things need to soften. And here, the mantra, I use the mantra, choose the lesser stressor. Keep stress very low, calm everything down, slow everything down, soften everything. And as you do those things, and there is an environment in which it's much less likely for stress to occur. And when less stress occurs, it's much less likely to have unpleasant symptoms from this disease. An example of this was I was there by myself for a long, long time, just the last 2 years when we had someone there all the time with John. And even after that, I did this, but someone gave me an old-fashioned Hoyer lift, but it did have an electric remote with it, which was great. And so John would just sometimes get up out of the recliner and then just slide to the floor in the living room. I had wooden floors put in so we could roll him around if we needed to. And he would find himself on the floor in various places. And so what I would do when that happened is slow everything down and go, oh, okay, are you all right? Let me get a pillow for you. Here, let me cover you up. Let me get you all cozy. I'm going to go get the lift. I will be right back. And then he would just lay there. Are you okay? Just close your eyes and relax. And he would, because I didn't get upset. And I slowed everything down. I went and got the lift. And I just went through by myself a very slow process. Nothing was hurried. Everything we just let it take as much time as it took. There was no need to rush and get him off the floor. No disaster was happening. And so getting him very slowly through that process and lifted up and either put back in the chair, or if he was ready for a nap, move him into the bedroom. Everything was slowed down. And this, here again, there's trust. He wasn't traumatized. He wasn't made to feel that something bad had happened. It was just like, okay, this is another event in the day. Let's just manage this one and we're fine. And I had long-term back problems. So I had to learn how to do that in a way that was going to be very slow and very careful to protect myself while I was also protecting John. So here again, this has to do, I'm stepping a little bit into the next point, which is laying boundaries. Because another conversation, another story I'm going to tell you was a bit of a shocker. And it also happened early in the disease. Here again, it was just a few weeks after we'd gotten the diagnosis, and I don't know what was going through John's head, but I walked into the living room, and out of nowhere, he said, I think we may need to get a divorce. Now, at our house, that was called the D word, and we did not use the D word. When we got married, we meant what we said what we meant, and that was it. Long haul, we're in this. That's just not an option. We made a decision. That is not an option for us. So when he said that, it was shocking. So I had a kind of visceral reaction to that because I have to admit I'm the bobcat here. And so, but I took a deep breath and I said, well, you need to know a couple of things. I'm here. I choose to be here. I'm not going anywhere. But if you choose, I'm not interested in what you just brought up. But if you choose this, you need to count the cost. You need to understand what's going to happen to you in this. Because if you decide to do this, number one, you need to know that I know where the good lawyers are. John was an attorney, by the way, so we knew who the good lawyers are. I know where the good lawyers are. Number two, I'm not going to be a victim in this thing. I'll go back to law school myself. I'll start practice. I'll move to another part of the state and I'll have a new life. But you need to count the cost for yourself if you're going to make this decision. Because I won't be a victim. But let me remind you, this is not my choice. I'm in this for the long haul. If you decide to do something, that's on you. And out the door I went, and that never came up again. Now that's called laying boundaries. That's called, okay, there's some things I'm not going to tolerate. There's some things I'm not going to let happen to me as well as to you. And that's important to do also. But remember, I did that with the trust piece. I did that with the love piece. I love you. This is not my choice. I'm in this for the long haul. There was that reminder there, but there was also the reminder that I wouldn't be a victim. So that presented a strength to John, I think. That presented a security to him. So that brings me to the end of the talk where I decided I'm just going to look up the dictionary definition of trust. And guess what I found? All the components that I've told you in these stories. And that just tickled me to death. So I want to share it with you. Definition of trust. Trust is a firm belief in the reliability, the truth, the ability, or the strength of someone or something. Let me say that again. Trust is a firm belief in the reliability, the truth, the ability, or the strength of someone or something. That's what trust is. I want you to own that. And I want you to go out and do that in your caregiver journey, because I deeply believe that if you can put this into practice, and the sooner the better, and it's going to be easier the earlier in the journey that you are. I recognize that. I really do. Don't get mad at me if you're way into this and say, you're crazy, this would never work. I get that. But for many of you who are in the early and middle stages, you can do some of these things. Even if you're having to do some of them, like the counseling on your own, you can still do it. So please own it. Please do it. And thank you for what you do. It's so important what you're doing every day. And I appreciate that. I'm sure your family does and your community does.